There is a moment somewhere between your third consecutive losing trade and your account hitting a number that you cannot recover, where your mind stops working like a trader and starts working like a trapped animal, when it freezes. I know that moment, I lived it. Even after 10 years of trading, even after thousands of dollars every month, I blew my account. And what I want to tell you is not what I did wrong with the trades. In those situations, always the trades are irrelevant. What I want to tell you is what was happening in my head, because that is where the accounts are actually being destroyed for all the traders. It always starts with something that sounds reasonable. I had a clear setup, I had a plan, the market moved against me, and I told myself it was just noise, just a week, just a temporary sweep of liquidity before the big move. Keep the position. That sentence, just a temporary move, is the most dangerous sentence a trader can say to himself, because it's exactly where the analysis stops and the negotiation begins. I was not reading the market anymore. I was arguing with it, and the market has never lost an argument. The first thing that dies when you are losing is not your account. It's your ability to think in probabilities. You stop asking what is likely to happen and start asking what would save me, especially my dignity. Those are not same questions. One is trading, the other is gambling with some BS borrowed from gurus. And when you cross that line, you do not even feel it. You just keep talking about setups and structure while your account bleeds. I moved my stop. The price had come close to the stop loss, and instead of accepting that the trade was a loss, I gave it more room. I framed it as flexibility, as experience. What it actually was the moment I abandoned my edge. A predefined point at which I agreed to be wrong rationally. The moment I moved that stop, I was no longer trading a system. I was trading my feelings about losing, and feelings have no edge. What happened next is almost embarrassingly predictable. The loss grew, and with the growing loss came something that is almost never discussed honestly in trading spaces. A shift in identity. I was no longer a disciplined trader managing a bad trade. I had become someone who needed to recover even socially, like I was performing in front of the whole world. The moment you lose a trade is like the dream, in which you are performing a sign in front of a whole crowd and you look down and you have no pants on. That shift from reason to emotions, from discipline to desperation, is the actual pivot point right before a blown account. And everything after that is just the account. I added to the position, not because the analysis supported it, because my ego could not process being wrong, to lose again. There is a kind of logic in this that feels scripturally right when you are inside it. That the price has moved this far against me. Surely it will reverse, but will it? This is not trading anymore. This is fleeing, suicide, instead of action. The mind will do almost anything to avoid a loss. It will invent analysis, manufacture conviction, and reframe recklessness as confidence or professionalism. Here is what nobody tells you about revenge trading. It does not feel like revenge, it feels like clarity. After a bad loss, something in your psychology needs to reassert control. So you take another trade, and it feels decisive. It feels like you are finally trusting yourself, taking back control. But what you are actually doing is letting pain and misery making decisions for you. And pain is not a trading strategy. It never has been. By the time the account was critically damaged, I had entered a state that I can only describe as disassociation from reality. The big mind freeze. The numbers on the screen no longer connected to anything real. Not to my life, not to the months it had taken to build that capital, not to the rules I had written in my own handwriting and pinned next to my monitor. I was operating in a kind of tunnel vision where the only thing that existed was the open position and the thin possibility of recovery. That homewrecker delusion, this is not a metaphor. This is a scientific documented psychological state that humans enter under acute stress. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for consequence-based thinking, essentially goes quiet. What remains is reactive, short-range, and entirely emotional. Like a beast. My account was not blown in one catastrophic moment. It bled from 1,000 cuts. Trade after trade, each one smaller, each one slightly more desperate, until the balance was a number I no longer cared to care. And when it was finally over, what I felt was not grief. I felt relief, which told me something important. I had been suffering for a long time before the account actually hit zero. The account hit zero last. The trader had hit zero much earlier. The most honest thing that I can tell you about blowing an account is this. It does not happen because of one bad trade. It happens because of a decision you make to stop honoring your own rules. Every blown account has that moment. Not the moment the loss arrived, the moment you decided your judgment was more trustworthy than the system. That is the real final killing blow. What I learned from that was not a new strategy. I did not emerge from that experience with a better entry technique or a revised risk framework. What I emerged with was an understanding of the one thing that actually needs to be managed in trading, and it is not the market. The market is indifferent. It doesn't know even if you exist. What needs to be managed is you. And the speed at which you are willing to abandon your framework the moment that you feel threatened. A trader who cannot sit with uncomfortability is not a disciplined trader with a bad setup. He is just someone who has not been tested yet. The market doesn't take your money. It simply responds to your behavior. Every oversized position, every move the stop loss, every revenge trade, every entry born from desperation rather than process. The market treats all of it the same way. It doesn't punish you. It does not reward you. It simply reflects you back at you with your decision in the only language it speaks, the price. If you recognize anything in what I have described, the negotiation, the move, the stop loss, the position added out of desperation rather than analysis, that recognition is worth more than any setup I could ever show you. The hard part is becoming someone who can actually execute it when it counts. And that work does not happen on a chart. It happens under pressure.